Well, nothing going on in Illini land. Why is there always so much drama? The wrong kind of drama. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Tupper. It is Tuesday. It is March the 6th. And it is cold and windy out here right now. And it's funny because I was at football practice this morning and it was cold. In fact, it was icy on the Memorial Stadium steps coming down to field level, and icy driving over there. A couple cars in the ditch where you could see that it had iced up and people were maybe going a little fast and hit a slick spot and lost it. But at the end of football practice, it was sunny. The sun came out and it was nice on the field down there, talking to Lovey and talking to Cam Thomas, the quarterback, and talking to Rod Smith, the offensive coordinator, and Nikki Allegretti and Mikey Dudek, and had a nice visit with all those people. Short because that's how it works, but nice. And we'll get to football in a little bit, but I just got off a radio show with a couple guys from St. Louis, and you can guess what they wanted to talk about. And they wanted to talk about, of course, Mark Smith transferring, and it's a sad thing. You can come down on any side of it you want, but it's always sad to me when a kid transfers, because that means something hasn't worked, and when they arrive with high hopes and a big dream, and it's always nice when that can work out, even partially, and then it's always sad when that kid comes in with super high expectations, as Mark did, and with a lot of fanfare, as Mark did, and lasts less than a year, as will be the case here, as Mark will be given his release. I'm having a hard time processing it all, and I try not to place a lot of blame on these things, because sometimes things just don't work out, and it can be a variety of factors, and to think that you know everything about everything is a mistake. I probably took a little bit of a leap a month ago when I wrote the column about is Mark Smith as unhappy as he appears, and Brad preferred the idea that rather than unhappy, that he was frustrated and disappointed that he hadn't had the kind of first season that he had hoped for, and I certainly agree with that. But I think he was also unhappy, and you just hate it when that happens to a kid, and yet I look back at it, and Brad started him right from the start. I think it was Brad's intention to start him every game of his career. I think that was Brad's intention. This is a significant recruit you get early in your coaching tenure, and he appears to be everything you're looking for in terms of a player, and also in terms of a kid and a person, a family, all of those things, and that they don't work out. And you can go back though, and it's no secret Mark didn't have a real good year, and he says, well, I was just not a good fit for that system, and in his mind that was, I'm sure, true, and that's fine, but he can't ignore the fact that he couldn't really defend without fouling. That, and to me, the single biggest shock of how he played was how much difficulty he had handling the basketball. Mark had trouble dribbling, and early on in the season, if you remember, that DePaul game was pretty early. That might have been the third game, I don't know, something like that. And Mark scored 21 points, and then everybody was encouraged, because one of the things that happened is he got to the free throw line 12 times, and he made 12 free throws. And he got there 12 times because one of the things that we saw would be a real asset to him, or should be, is his body. 6'4", 225 pounds, sort of that fullback guard, maybe even a little bit like Ravonte Rice was, in that you could bull your way around and use your muscle, and most freshman guards are 170 pounds, not 225 pounds. But then as the competition got tougher, look Mark had a hard time getting to the basket. He would lose the handle. You remember the play? Was it against Nebraska where they had the big scrum that went like the ball was here and everybody was on the floor, and afterwards and then the ball popped out miraculously to Trent Frazier, who took a three and missed it. But the hustle and the commitment on that play, Brad Underwood said, I hope that becomes the play of the year. And I get it. I get it. But how did that play start? Well, that play started when Mark lost the handle on the basketball. And that happened a lot. And I think he began to lose confidence in his own ability to dribble through traffic. I think he lost confidence in his ability to shoot. We've all saw times when he had pretty open looks, and Brad wanted him to shoot, and he didn't shoot. He passed it up. And you know, I mentioned the whole business about defending without fouling. A lot of his minute loss came when he would get 2 fouls early in the half and have to take a seat. And then I don't know what other people thought. I don't know what Mark thinks, but to me, he looked a little sluggish, not explosive, not quick, the way you would hope. He weighed 225. As I was thinking about his off season, and I was doing that recently, I thought, man, I would probably try to get him down to 212, something like that, and just lighten him up a little bit, get a little more explosion in his game, get him moving a little bit better. So, I mean, so you can say that the system wasn't a fit for you. Okay, that's how you felt. I would say in any system, you're going to be expected to dribble, defend without fouling, shoot, and move. And all of those were areas where I felt like Mark needed to make up ground. And, you know, I was often saying to fans, hey, be patient with this kid. He's going to become a sophomore. And a lot of times kids get better as sophomores. And while I'm telling fans to be patient with Mark Smith, it turns out Mark Smith didn't have patience to do it himself. And I don't know if you've seen the video that's going around with Tubby Smith, ironically, talking about transfers. And he says, you know, like last year there was almost 800 transfers. It's gotten crazy how many kids are transferring. And his point was, we're teaching kids how to quit. And he said when he wanted to transfer when he went to college at High Point. And his dad said, well, I don't know what you think you're going to do. You're not coming home. Your bed's taken. You can quit if you want and join the Army, but otherwise you made a commitment. You need to stick it out. And I'm not that old school where I'm saying, you know, every kid needs to honor his commitment. Look, if it just doesn't work and you're unhappy, that's an option to you to transfer. And I'm not disputing that. But I am saying, I think Mark, with a little patience, would have been a lot happier because he would have played a lot better and been more comfortable in his second year. But, you know, I also thought like some of the Mr. Basketball stuff brought some extra weight with it. You know, everybody asked him about it. I think that's to be expected. When he saw Trent Frazier passing by, DeMonte Williams getting more minutes. Well, DeMonte Williams wasn't necessarily better, but DeMonte Williams was making fewer mistakes, and DeMonte Williams was able to stay on the floor. And then Tijon, who, you know, I know Brad and a lot of coaches don't like undersized guards that don't have a jump shot. Well, and that's Tijon. But Tijon, to his credit, and I thought to the coaching staff's credit, figured out a way to make him into a real contributor, and he got his starting job back, and he was defending like crazy, and he was moving the ball, and he figured out how to get to the basket with that sweeping layup thing where he could contribute a little bit offensively without the jump shot. And then he had the one game where he hit a couple threes. So, and then he knew Io was coming in, and he knew they're recruiting Courtney Ramey, and he knows that, you know, they just signed Alan Griffin, who's a 6'5" wing guard, shooter, scorer, shot maker, playmaker. That's what they hope. And I don't know if he thought it would be easier. You know, and I heard some people say, well, maybe Illinois just really overrated him. Well, I don't know about that, but I know one thing. Did Duke and Kentucky and Michigan State and Ohio State and Missouri and Kansas State, did they all overrate him? You know, as I try to not to get stuck in the mud here. You know, I don't believe that. I don't believe that was the case. So, you know, just one of those things that's you just feel bad about. I wish he had been more patient. I wish he could have felt more comfortable. I wish it had worked out better. I enjoyed him in the brief time. Didn't get to know him nearly as well as I figured I would over time, but wish him the best. You know, why wouldn't you? He'll have to sit out a year, and you know what? That may not be the worst thing in the world either. I think he's got a lot to work on. You got to remember, Mark Smith did not play in that crazy high-pitch AAU world with the same tenacity that a lot of these guys did, because for one thing, he was still very involved in basketball throughout his high school career. And, you know, maybe there's something to be said there. And we'll see. But we, you know, wish him a lot of luck. And now, what's going to happen with LeRon Black, who is getting married, who doesn't have any money, who wants to play professionally now? LeRon's situation very different than Mark Smith's. LeRon clearly fit into this system. Mark's personal growth and advancement in his 1 year with Brad Underwood was amazing. Made himself into a vastly better player, leading scorer. You know, just but he's got a personal situation that he feels like he has an opportunity to address and can maybe do that now. I'd hate to see that happen, but you know, it's not my life. What's going to happen with Michael Finke, I don't know. What's going to happen with Tejon Lucas as he sees these other guards coming in and knows that, you know, he found a role, but in the long run, does that role dry up for him? I don't know. I think Tevian Jones is in this week from California. That would be a tremendous get for them. They are involved in some big kids. The kid from Senegal who's playing in the prep school in Florida, Samba Kane, a 6'11" kid. I think he's a project kid who is, but would be worth investigating because he could help them in terms of the rim protection that they certainly need. But you know, Kipper will be back. So, you know, I don't know. We're in that period here. I also expect there to be 1 or 2 fifth-year transfers, depending on how many scholarships there are. You know, they're going to have to, this is a constant and evolving math problem here, you know. So we'll see what happens with all of that. Football practice today, Lovey in a boot, hurt his foot or his lower leg with some kind of he said a muscle injury. It was kind of funny to see him in a boot and his beard. And talked to Rod Smith, the new offensive coordinator. It was interesting to watch him work closely with Cam Thomas out there on the field. He was not entirely happy with their quarterback play out there today, considering they were not working against the defense. He said, you know, why should we have any balls on the ground? And we had a number of them. And he said part of that is quarterbacks, part of that is wide receivers, but we shouldn't have any of it. And so he's working with him, and we'll see how that goes. I had a chance to visit with Mikey Dudek, who looks great. And I told Mikey, I said, it just feels like we've moved past the whole knee thing. You know, we're not asking you about that. We're not looking at it. We're not watching you run around going, oh my God, is he going to crumple to the ground? And he said he had a conversation with his dad last night, quite a while, conversation, and for the first time in 3 years, his dad didn't mention his knee one time. And at the end of the conversation, he said, Dad, you realize you didn't mention my knee? And he said, so I think we have moved beyond that. He said this offense is going to be very fast-paced, particularly for him as a slot receiver. He's got to not only run throughout the play, but as soon as the play ends, the whistle sounds, he's running again to get back into position because they're going to go again really fast. He said it's the tempo of it is beyond anything he's been involved with. So we'll see how that goes. Talked a little bit to Nicky Allegretti, who's, you know, finding it hard to believe this is the start of his final year. He's been through a ton. He's such a good kid, been the anchor on that offensive line, and really trying to help these young offensive linemen become something this year. So, you know, we'll see. It's can't tell much in one spring practice, I can tell you that. And we'll keep you updated as we go over and watch more, and we'll see where things go basketball-wise. I would just say don't completely freak out by any departures until we do the math on the arrivals, and see who's coming in and who might be able to man some of these spots, and so forth and so on. All right, that's all for today. Thanks, folks. Appreciate it a lot, and we will talk to you next Tuesday. So long.